Hello everyone. If you've been watching the Race to World First of Temple of Febe challenge mode last year, or maybe followed the release a little bit afterwards as well, you will probably associate Temple of Febe with Virtuoso stacking. And for the better part of the past year, this has been true. In the last couple of months, however, the space has opened a lot. But perhaps it's best to start this story at the beginning. Temple of Febe challenge mode is an encounter that is basically scripted from start to finish, the whole 10 minutes of its enrage timer. The boss cycles through 6 distinct mechanics. Play the mechanics wrong and the wipe of the squad is basically guaranteed. Unlike other bosses where consequences of mistakes can often be out-healed, this fight requires clean and coordinated execution of a specific strategy. Most groups accomplish this with a set of squad markers on the field and mapping out the entire fighting script. As an example, when one thing happens, we go to arrow, then dodge forward together. Or when another thing happens, we go to heart and run around the boss counterclockwise, etc. While there are many ways to strategize this fight, what all groups have in common is that they do have a strategy, and they have practiced this strategy for a long time. For the longest time, the main strategies people employed crucially relied on running 6 Condition Virtuosos. The reason for it was that the enemy adds that spawn have to be cleaved down, and by far the most effective way to cleave them was with Condition Virtuoso. Couple that with the need to sometimes stay away from the boss for certain mechanics, and the 1200 range from Virtuoso made it by far the highest DPS spec in most scenarios. It was never the only way to kill the boss, but for the longest time it was so far above all other options that Virtuoso had close to 60% play rate. A heal Scourge, a heal Chronomancer, and 2 Quickness Heralds, which were extremely overpowered at the time, rounded out the composition. But this did not feel satisfying to everybody, and if you're watching this video just now, there's a decent chance you never played this fight precisely because the comps were so rigid. You might just not want to play Condition Virtuoso, which is a fair stance to take. In any case, we were not satisfied with it, and took the Virtuoso nerfs some months ago as a renewed opportunity to spread some alternative strategies and alternative ideas. You see in this video that we still have a heal Chronomancer and a heal Scourge as the backbone of this composition. But every other build you see here can be replaced by pretty much anything else, and if you do want to play a different healer, you can always replace the heal Scourge by your healer of choice, and then run an Alacrity DPS Scourge to bring the Sand Portal as a boon support, without changing anything else about this strategy. There are 3 main challenges to overcome in order to make this boss accessible to any generic DPS composition. The Malice ants that must be killed before they reach the boss, the AoEs that you drop on the ground that forces players away from the boss, and the impact of those AoEs being extremely dangerous if you do not have an invulnerability skill like the Virtuoso's Bladesong Distortion. We deal with the Malice ants by spawning them at the very edge of the arena. This is a return to the immobilization strategy that was employed in the Race to Worlds First. After 30 seconds, when they get close to the boss, they lose resistance and can be immobilized and then cleaved down even by melee specs. In order to deal with the AoE paddles in the first 2 phases when they are small, it is enough to just step a few steps away from the boss, then dodge forwards. We do this with a specific logic to it, to not cover too much of the field. But generally, it's agreed that this is the easy part of the fight. The AoE paddles in the 3rd phase become much bigger, stay on the ground for longer, and are thus a lot more dangerous. For these, one needs a specific strategy. In order to deal with the AoE paddles in the 3rd phase, we drop them far enough from the boss by taking Mesmer portals and Scourge portals. To survive them, we simply do a dodge roll on top of the portal, which dodges the impact damage. And after the impact has been dodged, we then press F to return back to the boss unharmed. This is much easier than somehow getting the timing precisely right on all 10 players to survive a dodge without invulnerability. And it allows you to play the fight as easily as a non-Virtuoso as it is to play other strategies with Virtuoso. We call these patterns we form on the ground flowers, and therefore this is called the flower strategy on the Void Lounge Discord server. On that server, we are working to popularize this strategy. If you want to learn more and join the training, there's a link to the Discord in the video description. And this is basically where we're at today. The encounter is now doable, at least over this Discord's looking for group system, by basically any DPS build you want. Here you see me play a kitless rifle mechanist, and even though I'm the worst performing DPS player in this group, my damage is still by far sufficient to make the DPS check of the fight without getting carried by the other players. So if so far you have shied away from this encounter in challenge mode because you didn't want to have to pick up a new DPS spec, then maybe this is a good time for you to get started. Over the summer there's going to be a Progathon event on the Void Lounge Discord, where for one weekend we run a lot of training runs back to back, hopefully to get many players from zero to hero, so to speak. But even right now you can find a suitable entry into the encounter. Still, keep in mind this is a very hard boss fight challenge mode, and the DPS check is significant. So you should probably bring optimized ascended gear, perhaps even with stat infusions if you can afford them. Listening to callouts on Discord is a requirement, and you must be willing to improve and progress as a player on your journey. Success will not come for free on this encounter. But for the first time in the history of this fight, you are now in a spot where you can bring your favorite DPS build and still do well enough, because we have moved on from stacking 6 Condition Virtuosos in a strategy that was made for Condition Virtuosos. As a side note, the nerfs to Condition Virtuoso have also affected other strategies, and nowadays it's quite common in all groups to have 1 or 2 non-Virts that are allowed to greed near the boss for damage, while the Virtuosos do all the ranged rolls. So no matter the strategy you end up joining progression runs for, there is some space for you to play what you desire. And in the flower strategy, just every single DPS player can do that. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon in the Temple of Febe challenge mode.